Hello, Mary.
Yep, can you hear me?
We'll be starting shortly.
Okay.
We have options because we got absent directors, so you got options.
No, I didn't get a picture.
Well, try this. Who's next to you there? That's Eddie's?
Yeah.
Try that one. Sit in it before you move it, man. You may not want it. The height?
In the auditorium at East High School, 1001 Atkins Street, at 6 o'clock p.m., by request of the President, Robert S. Casillo.
Thank you. A roll call, please.
Mr. Brzezinski,
Excused.
Mr. Fabrizi,
Excused.
Mr. Harkins,
Here.
Mrs. McNair, Mr. Petrunger,
Here.
Ms. Shenley,
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. Spagel,
Excused.
Mrs. Alexandrovich. Here. Mr. Casillo.
Here. Thank you. Next, we are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Sasha Morales, a fifth grade student from Joanna Connell School, introduced by Mr. Joseph Orlando, principal, followed by a moment of silence in honor of Colonel Edward H. Kuhar, a retired assistant principal who passed away on October 1st, 2016. Also, please extend the moment of silence for Mr. Ron Steele, the CEO of JCAC, who has led the JCAC organization for many years, well respected in the community, and we certainly are going to miss him dearly. So please, Mr. Orlando.
Good evening, everybody. As Mr. Casillo said, my name is Joe Orlando. I'm the principal at Joanna Connell. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce Sasha Morales, fifth grade student at Connell. She is the daughter of Marie Morales. She has two sisters that both attend Connell, Janice, who's an eighth grader, and Noelia, who's a third grader, who are here with her. This was probably, I don't know, I've been a principal for 12 years, and we get the opportunity to do this almost every year, and this has to be the best student background form that's ever been filled out, just because not of the amount of things that she wrote, but with the sincerity that was put into it. Things she likes about school, the first thing she put was helping people. Then she added art and science, so we're good that she's in class too. And I asked her, she left one blank about being an above average student, and she's like, wasn't sure. She didn't want to put down that she was an A student because she was so modest. In her personal time, she enjoys art, drawing, painting, basketball, and the comment was my favorite. I just told her mother earlier, She's the first student that ever wrote, "Thank you for giving me an opportunity to do this. I'm very happy." So, Sasha, unbelievable what you wrote here. I couldn't be more proud. And then what she wants to do when she's older is she wants to be a teacher and have a bakery so she can feed the hungry. And last, she didn't put this on here, and this made me feel good. She chose to interview me as one of her professions for the career fair that we're having at Connell tomorrow. So, ladies and gentlemen, Sasha Morales.
Fantastic. All please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Sasha, thank you. Great job. I told you so as a teacher. You're welcome. So glad. Yeah.
Thank you, Sasha. That was a great job. We are actually, you have a very limited agenda this evening, primarily because we had met just 2 weeks ago, and many of the issues, so to speak, were covered in depth at the meeting. At this point, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Aaron Bretz. He's a senior at Central Career and Technical. Aaron has a 3.14 GPA and is enrolled in the Digital Media Lab. He lives with his mother, Robin Bretz. Aaron also has a brother, Richard, and 2 sisters, Jess and Shauna. Aaron is a 3rd-degree black belt, so treat him with much respect, in karate, and enjoys teaching karate to younger students. He also enjoys anime, music, and hanging out with his friends. After high school, Aaron plans to pursue an acting career and plans to attend the University of Pittsburgh to major in theater arts. Aaron, welcome.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to say this evening, Aaron?
I really appreciate
Hit that red button.
I really appreciate you guys having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I want to announce that the board met this evening in executive session on Tuesday, October 11th, 2016, at the James E. Barker Leadership on 148 West 21st Street in Conference Room 3 from 6:30 to 7:16 regarding personnel. And the board also met this evening, Wednesday, October 19th, 2016, in the library at East High here at 1101 Atkins Street from 5:04 to 5:30 regarding negotiations. Next will be our hearing of citizens. Persons desiring to speak for 5 minutes must submit their request in writing to the Secretary's office at least 1 week prior to the board meeting. All others may speak for 3 minutes. This evening, we have one 5-minute speaker, Mr. William McDonald in Erie, speaking to the topic of Erie School District business. Is Mr. McDonald there? He is. Good evening, Mr. McDonald.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
There's not many of y'all up there today.
We had a lot of people traveling, a couple ill. Yeah,
Well, I hope they're doing something constructive.
me too.
How you coming along with the happenings down there in Harrisburg? I haven't heard anything. I don't get the paper, so
I see.
I can hear it when I get here.
Yeah. Dr. Badams, are you going to discuss that at a later time, or do you want to talk about it?
Sure, I'll definitely, in my superintendent report, I'll give an update.
Okay, I appreciate that because I want to know what's going on. Because our kids are, I don't know. I wish we could do better for them. I really do, because kids are falling through the cracks like I don't know what, falling out of school. I want them to be encouraged. I don't want them to be worried about whether they're going to graduate or not. And I really don't. You hear me saying this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I mean, we're paying those taxes, and I'd like to see something out of it. I want to see our kids come through. We've been having some problems. We always had problems, though. Problems didn't just start. I was thinking about when you go back to Harrisburg again, that I would like to go with you. If y'all don't think I'll disgrace you down there, because I'm going to speak my mind, you know that. If you got something if you don't have something worth saying, be quiet. But if you got something worth saying, let it out, because it ain't doing no good holding it in. Now, a lot of things I say you might not like, that's your problem. Because I believe in freedom of speech. And I believe in, you got to be respectful of what you say and how you say it. That's why we go to school. I went one day. I didn't go long because I had to go to work. I come up on welfare, and I had to help my mother. God have really blessed me. I'm still here. I'm older than any of y'all up there, probably. I ain't gonna tell you how old that is. But it's up there. And if you make it as far as I did, you'd be doing good. You really would. And you will be blessed. But like I was saying, when you go back down there, I'd like to go with you. That's about all I got to say for now. But you can believe there's some more behind it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. That's terrific. Are there any people in the audience that would like to address the board for 3 minutes? Please come to the podium and print your name and your address. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. So I just would first want to start by saying thank you to everyone on the board, because I understand that your job is very difficult and it's very challenging. And I don't think any one of you guys here thank you or gratification as much as you guys deserve, because it's a hard position to be in. And I know that you guys are fighting for our children, for my children who attends every school district. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and from everyone in my community. Second, I would just want to suggest some ideas that I've been trying to brainstorm of how maybe we can get funding instead of just saying our funding is cut, our funding is cut. I try to like to be preventative. So I was thinking, what if we did something where, well, I have a couple ideas. So I know there's nonprofit organizations such as the Y who they don't pay taxes, but maybe can we team up with them and ask if they can do something such as a battle of the Ys, where each Y would take it upon themselves to find the fundraisers. Maybe the children can help, because currently I'm at the Glenwood Y. So maybe the kids can make bracelets or do some type of fundraiser, and they all just do fundraising, and then all together, whatever they fundraise, they would donate to the Erie School District. The second thing that I had as an idea would be a dance-off between the Erie School Districts and the Mill Creek School District, because I do work with the Mill Creek schools right now, and they love to dance. And one thing that I saw that was beautiful about it is that there's so much of them that is the same that I don't think they recognize, because they say the county versus the city, you're so different, that if they came together and say we did it at Collegiate Academy's field, it's ours, we don't have to pay for it, we can do snacks and refreshments that can raise some money, but they would see that most of the things they do are alike. We're the same, we're just in a different location. So it would raise money, plus it would bring awareness that, hey, we're all working together, we're all the same, we're all Erie County, and we're all working for the greater whole, which is our city of Erie. So that's all I had. I just was trying to brainstorm some ideas. But again, I just want to thank you, everyone, for everything you guys do, because it really is appreciated. You guys may not hear it all the time, but we truly, genuinely appreciate all your work and efforts.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Those are some great ideas, incidentally. Thank you for that.
Mr. Casilla?
Yes. Mary?
Oh, I did not hear that young woman's name. Could you tell me who she is, please?
Would you come up and state your name, please? I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
I'm sorry, I didn't say it. My name is Latasha Phillips.
LaSasha?
Nope.
Latasha.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Latasha.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Okay, are there any other speakers? 3-minute allocation? Not seeing or hearing. We'll move forward to reports of committees and liaisons. Anyone on the board want to report on any specific committee that you have represented? Mr. Harkins?
Not an official committee report, but a report. Monday night at the Jefferson Society, there was a presentation. The title was Public Education in Erie, a History, and I think it was called, and then a Look to the Future. I wandered in there a few minutes before it began, and a Professor Wirtz from Edinburgh, I didn't know what to expect, whether he just meant the city of Erie or the Erie area, but walking in the room, Dr. Badams was there as an attendee, and we looked across the room and saw Linda Alexandrowitz was there, sitting with Nancy Sedali, our former assistant superintendent, and Daria Devlin was there. So we all kind of wandered in independently and heard a very good presentation that was very informative, interesting, and helpful. He made it a point to stress that he wasn't trying to take sides in the funding formula of battles that we've been so used to and are so still immersed in, but instead he gave us a history of how the laws of Pennsylvania came to create school districts such as Erie's, and how some of the highlights of progress and challenges came to Erie and how they met them. And he went through some periods of building construction booms and financial crises of the past, and then he wrapped it up with a look to the future, and he was very optimistic and hopeful and upbeat about Dr. Badams' efforts to create the community schools that suddenly we've been pushing and developing. So anyway, his point was that these community schools is kind of a going back to the way schools served the communities originally in the history that he had given us that night. He tied it together that way. It was a very interesting, uplifting, informative event, and as I said, Linda and I were there, and Dr. Badams and Daria and Nancy Sedali still cares even though she's retired. So just wanted to mention that it was very worthwhile, and it's in advance of the Jefferson Society releasing an essay on that very topic.
Oh, John, thank you. That's informative. I didn't get the memo, or I would have been there. I thank you and Linda and Jay, obviously, for representing the board at that meeting. Sounded like it was very informative. Is there any other member have anything to report this evening? Okay, not hearing. Can I have a motion to approve the reports? We have a motion and second by Linda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Unfinished business, not having any. We'll move on to new business regarding sections 501 through 549 and career and technical 601 through 6.03. I have a motion to accept the
I move
new business.
I move we do just as you said.
I thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Harkins, seconded by Mr. Petrunger, beg your pardon. Okay, roll call, please.
Yes.
Mr. Petrunger,
Yes.
Ms. Shenley,
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Yes. Mr. Cassillo?
Yes. Next, I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for the minutes of September 28th, 2016. May I have a motion to accept? Mr. Petrunger, motion, and Mrs. Alexandrovich, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, thank you. I thought you were going to oppose it there for a second. Okay, next is the item 8, the bill and payroll. The approval of the board authorizing payrolls for the period September 2nd through September 30th, and the schedule of bills for October 2016 and non-major priority funds.
I
You have a
move we
motion?
approve them for payment.
Thank you. Mr. Harkins, seconded by Mr. Petrunger. Roll call, please.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Petrunger? Ms. Shenley?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Mr. Cassillo?
Yes. Our next item on the agenda is a report of our superintendent, Dr. Battens. So I will turn it over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Cassillo. First of all, I think Mr. McDonald left, but I did promise an update on events in Harrisburg, and I have nothing big to report right now because there hasn't been much movement, and that's largely due to the fact that all of our House members are currently running for re-election, and half of our Senate likewise. So anticipate that they'll be much more active after they're done with the campaigns and the votes are in. So there isn't too much to report there. As far as our interaction with Harrisburg, though, just so the board is familiar with our current progress under, make sure I get the numbers right here, under Section 694A of the school code that put us in a special, very unique status called financial watch. The clock is ticking now on a 180-day obligation to prepare a financial recovery plan. And we have so far had a meeting with PDE about this status, and we've had an initial conversation with Public Financial Management, PFM, and are in the process of completing a data request that they submitted. So we'll have that done very soon. Mr. Polito and his staff have been working to provide all the documentation that they've asked for. Much of it they already had, but there's now been another fiscal year completed, and so they're updating the report that they produced for us last June. And we also will have our annual financial report complete, I believe, within the next week or so, and so we'll be able to give them much more up-to-date information. Unfortunately, that annual financial report is not going to have good news in it. It's going to simply verify what we've already projected and in fact show that we've operated at a loss yet again. We'll have that precisely quantified within the week or so. That's what that does is simply means that we're going to carry a larger negative fund balance and that we're going to have even deeper hole to dig our way out of as we move forward. And I guess in sort of an answer to Mr. McDonald's question about what's next in Harrisburg, this plan is the next thing for us to produce for Harrisburg, because we're obligated under the law to have this plan approved by the Secretary of Education. If he reads our plan and does agree with it and approves it, then that will be the roadmap for us to get ourselves to a position of financial solvency. Also included in the plan, there has to be provision in it to make sure that we're also providing a top-notch education. We have to show that as far as our educational outcomes, that the activities under the financial recovery plan will help us to provide an adequate, at least, education for our students. And so we intend to provide essentially 4 different options under this plan, depending on the financial reality that it's greeted with. So if there is no additional money to be given to Erie's public schools, then there'll be a plan that shows nothing but sustained cuts. And there'll be an unavoidable situation where we'll have to impose higher tax rates, I would assume, or at least consider that. There'll be another version of the plan that shows what we would do if we were forced to contemplate other non-traditional approaches to the way we provide our education. And a third version of the plan will show what would happen if we had just enough additional funding to make ends meet, to keep our heads above water, to avoid running out of funds and not being able to make payroll, enough money to keep the doors open but not fix the doors. And then there'll be a fourth option that will show a plan that will get us toward some sort of equity and parity. A budget number, a request for additional funding from Harrisburg that will show what it would take for us to have enough funds to provide what our children actually need in Erie. And it's that, I guess, for lack of a better term, best case scenario that we're hopeful will gain the support of Harrisburg, and that we'll then argue for as we move forward and start to contemplate the 2017-18 budget. So that's what we're working on. And in conjunction with that, this board tasked the administration with developing a task force to take a look at options that we have ahead of us relative to our high schools. And that's something that I know has been of particular concern to our not just our own community, but to the surrounding communities. And so we continue to work on that. One of the data collection tasks that PFM has given us is to provide our financial justification and analysis of what that would mean, and that will be part of the report that we provide pursuant to the board's resolution. We will have another meeting. We have one meeting so far with that task force. We will meet again in the not too distant future, and that task force is largely school officials, representatives from the Erie Education Association, and our local legislators. When I say local, I mean Erie County. And so we will be having that next meeting, I believe, in the end of this month. We're attempting to have one per month. And then one of the major tasks that the resolution required was for us to determine whether or not closing our high schools is a feasible option given our budget situation. So we will have a report for you in very short order. Now there is good news. If you didn't see it, I did want to remind everyone that this past week we received really a historic grant from the Erie Community Foundation, the Susan Hurt Hagen Fund for Transformational Philanthropy, and the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority in the amount of $1.5 million. And that grant is to support our efforts to establish community schools in 5 of our existing school buildings. And the nice thing is that effort's already well underway, and that will help us to make sure we're providing for a variety of resources to help our students be prepared to learn. It'll help us to provide after-school programming not only for our students but for their families and for our community, keep our doors open longer and later in the year, and really coordinate and harness the positive energy that's out there from all of the different organizations that are already working to help children and families, but to coordinate that work and align it with our academic goals and with our, actually all of our efforts in each of our schools that are participating. And the groundswell of support for this is really encouraging. We presented today at the Rotary Club. We've really been receiving a lot of positive support from the community to make this a reality, and we anticipate hiring the directors for each of these 5 schools very soon. The window for the application process closes this Friday, so that I'll be happy to report once we've made those hiring decisions. We'll know exactly who will be tasked with this really important work. So I'm excited about that. And that's it. We'll keep you posted on that. Those are some major announcements that we have in the offing, and as soon as we get to a point where we've made a decision, we'll report it to the board and the public.
Thank you, Dr. Bradams. May I have a motion to accept the superintendent's report?
So be it.
We have a motion by Mr. Harkins, seconded. Did you do it, Frank?
I did, yeah.
Mr. Petrunger. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, report of the secretary, we have no report this evening. We have no bids to award, so we move to the last item, which is any other matter for the board for discussion. A question on the point of order. Being that if there is nothing to report or no bids to be approved, do we need to address that with approval? No? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, any other board matter for discussion this evening? Mr. Harkins?
Just that a very well-known Erie citizen and personality passed away late last week, and he was not officially connected to the school district, but yet he was connected. I would have mentioned it and asked for him to be considered in our moment of silence, but he was not officially one of us, not one of our employees. But James R. Lakorchik was a prominent citizen, played a couple of leading roles. One connection he had is his former wife and the mother of his children was one of our career elementary teachers, and she was very well respected, that being Carol Lakorchik. But Jim was a passionate sports fan, and although most of his passion was directed to his alma mater, Cathedral Prep, he took an interest in the history of Erie sports and all of the great, rich heritage of athletes and contests that have happened in high school sports in particular over the many years, even before he was born. He chided us often to erect a sign on West 6th Street calling to attention with pride that the Strong Vincent football teams was state champions, and the basketball team as well. And he was, of course, affected by traveling to other cities and seeing how other communities bragged about such accomplishments, and he couldn't understand why we didn't do better. And many times, many of us told him, yeah, we should and we will, but I'm just admitting we've gotten this far and still haven't done it. His heart was in the right place. He was a very passionate devotee and booster of Erie sports. And the other thing was his latest endeavor that he was about to embark on was writing a history of the great Erie sports in Erie Public Schools, along the same lines that Dan Brabender wrote such a book about prep football. So he was, his remarks were that nobody else is stepping up to do it, so he was going to. So those ideas are worth continuing to support, and I mentioned them with his passing that they shouldn't die with him. They were the signs that he advocated and the collection of a history of Erie sports are still worth pursuing for whoever wants to step up and do it, or if a group does. But and the other way he was connected to us too is he became a radio announcer outside of sports for WJET recently, and he had over the years had several superintendents and board members on and school district officials to explain to the public some of the controversies that we found ourselves in. And He had, in his honesty, would admit he didn't always fully understand it, but that's why he invited on school district officials. So anyway, I just think it's worth a mention on the record to acknowledge the passing of James R. Lakorchik and with respect for the contributions that he did make in the ways I mentioned. He just deserves a mention and to be remembered for his love of Erie sports and wanting to promote it, and the ideas which he wanted to continue, I think, are worth us trying to continue some way, somehow. An Erie Hall of Fame, too. He wanted this, he was a voice for Erie Sports Hall of Fame within the Civic Center. Anyway, that's all. He was worth a mention, and so I'm glad to do it.
Thank you, John. Yes, Jim will be sorely missed. Anyone else? Mary, do you have anything you want to?
Yes, Mr. President,
Yes, Mary.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Hey, I'm here, Mary. Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to tell all of you that I miss you very much, but I am consoling myself by sitting on the boardwalk and watching the waves from the Atlantic Ocean roll in.
Thank you, Mary.
I'll second
You're
that.
welcome.
We miss you too, to say the least. And John seconded that
Thank you.
as well. Okay. Anyone else have anything? Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion by Mr. Petrunger to adjourn the meeting, seconded by Mrs. Alexandrovich. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.